At 7:30 this morning, you can hear more about plans to renovate a former Muslim burial ground in Woking, where soldiers were killed in World War I. Where they were laid to rest. The heritage site in Horsell Common no longer contains the graves of those who died. They've been moved to the nearby Brookwood Cemetery, but it's hoped the site, once restored, will draw people to come and reflect and remember and learn more about the contribution paid by many Indian soldiers who lost their lives fighting for this country. Later, we'll be hearing from David Robbins, the chair of Horsell Common Preservation Society. But here's some thoughts from Zafar Iqbal, who I also met at the Common earlier this week.
Well, it's I think, a privileged position to be here at this present time. As a teenager, I came to the UK in 1969, and we used to come here and play around, but never really realised the significance of this site and what relevance it had to me as a person. And as I grew up, and now I think it's a very important heritage site, not just for the Muslim community, but I think for the whole of the community of the UK, in terms of understanding the multicultural nature of our society now and how it actually arrived to that position, and how different societies, communities, people contributed in terms of even their lives, like the people who were actually buried here were soldiers from the Indian British Empire Army who gave their lives for the UK society.
There are plans to turn this into a garden. It will never be a graveyard again. Why a garden?
Well, I think gardens are very important in human culture in terms of peace and contemplation and remembrance of people in that sense. And we are hoping that once the physical structures are renovated, that actually have a garden of remembrance in here. Remember the soldiers who gave their lives and were buried here, but also I think wider for all the community to actually come here and contemplate and meditate and provide an environmental Islamic concept garden. Islamic gardens have got a lot of environmental elements in there, and that actually I think fits in quite nicely with the surrounding environment in here, being a common area and a lot of trees here. It'll fit in very nicely on that side and provide a real meaningful place for people to come and visit and learn about themselves and their past.
What are your hopes beyond the commemorations of the centenary of World War I? What are your hopes for this place that we're standing here now in the future?
I think I look at it as a long-term sustainable heritage site and a lot of participation by the local schools and even at national level, people to come here and visit and learn about the history of our country. And in the wider context, I think it's got a significance in terms of walking, that we can use this heritage site with the mosque and the cemetery, Brookwood Cemetery, for the UK's relations with the rest of the Islamic world. And I think there's a great potential of promoting good and peaceful relations between different faiths by having a place like this. And I'm sure in the future you will actually get people coming from all over the world. They have got interest in faith, that they will visit Woking as a place to actually learn about the Islamic culture of UK.
Zafar Iqbal talking to me at Horsell Common earlier this week. More from the Horsell Common Preservation Society after 7:30. And of course, that's the number you can call this morning on the Sunday Breakfast Show. If you'd like to tell me who you will be remembering this Remembrance Sunday, you can also text 81333, start your text with the word radio, or you can email me, emily.jeffery@bbc.co.uk. Now, as you've been hearing in the news, it's hoped the renovation of a burial ground in Surrey for Muslim soldiers killed in World War I will help a new generation learn about the contribution of more than 1 million troops from India. Wounded soldiers were brought to hospitals in the southeast, in particular in Brighton. Hindu and Sikh soldiers who died were taken to crematoriums in Brighton and Hampshire, but Muslim soldiers didn't have a special burial ground until 1915, when the Horsell Common site was created. The graves have since been removed following vandalism, but the structure remains and is now a heritage site. The Horsell Common Preservation Society has received funds from English Heritage to pay for 80% of the work, with Woking Borough Council making up the shortfall. I went to the site on the outskirts of Woking earlier this week to meet David Robbins, the chair of the Horsell Common Preservation Society.
We can see a rectangular walled area which created the Muslim burial ground, with a rather impressive entrance portico or chhatri at the front, made out of brick but with Portland stone roof and eaves.
Well, let's wander through. We can actually walk through underneath the chhatri, this domed roof, through these crispy autumn leaves. And as we walk through the chhatri, before we actually get to the ground, we can already see some signs of vandalism and graffiti. This has been a bit of a problem over the years.
It has. It's been our concern over the years, although it's not been that bad. We get occasional times when people will start putting graffiti on the walls, and it's something that we're concerned about as we repair and improve this area. I think we'll need to have some security here, some television cameras or some other form. I think provided plenty of people come here, we're hoping that people will respect it as a war memorial, which of course it is.
And we walk through now into this square surrounded by the walls. We can see the 4 trees in front of us. And then we look out into the depths of Horsell Common. The graves have gone, but the space remains, and this is very significant in terms of a war memorial here.
It is, and it's significant because these were Indian soldiers who gave their lives for our war, and of course there are many more. These were some that died in England and needed proper burial. Indeed, the Germans apparently had some propaganda to suggest that we weren't honouring the Muslims in their burial rites. And as a result of that, the War Office decided that they would build this burial ground in order that they should be respected in a proper way.
And just down the road from the Shah Jahan Mosque, so very appropriate that it should be here. Why is it appropriate that it should stay here and be restored?
I think it's appropriate because it indeed is a memorial to those people who are buried here, and our plans include they're trying to recreate an area of quietness and meditation in respect for those people who are buried here and indeed in memory of them. We'd love to have a fountain in the centre of the area here with the names of the people who were buried here actually set out. And of course some interpretation boards so that perhaps young people can come here as well and see the significance of the Muslim contribution to our life here and indeed to the war at that time.
As we look around, you can see where some of the walls have been knocked down, I presume, or worn away over the years, and obviously they need to be restored. What will you be spending the initial money on, and what's your timescale for this?
The concept is initially to repair the structure, which are the walls and the gatehouse that we've been talking about. So there's quite a bit of careful work to be done. You'll see there's a bit of damage to the walls here, not only from vandalism but also weather, so that's all got to be renewed and cleaned off. So there's quite a bit of work to bring it back, the structure back. We've got a grant for doing that work, and the clear intention is to get the work done in 2013 so that all is finished in time for 2014, which is the centenary of the beginning of the First World War, and which is to be remembered and celebrated, as you probably know, on a national level.
It's not often you get to stand in a place like this. It is very unusual. We know it's very significant. What do you hope the legacy of this place will be in Horsell Common after the centenary of World War I?
I believe and hope that it will be somewhere that for many years people will come to as a quiet place for reflection initially. I don't know whether you've been to the Brookwood Cemetery, but the war cemetery there, but the atmosphere is extraordinary, and I'd like to think this will be something like that here. I also hope that the young people who have no recollection or concern for World War I will also use it as a historical marker in our locality. So I hope it will be a benefit for generations to come.
David Robbins, the chair of the Horsell Common Preservation Society.